was supposed to be just another sleepover. 2 kids, a flashlight, and a game of hide and seek. But when I lifted the blanket, it wasn't my cousin standing there. It was a man I'd never seen before, already inside the house. Oh, the storm was bad that night. Lightning, rain, thunder. We thought the knocks at the window were a prank, until the lightning lit up a figure standing right there in the dark, and it kept coming back every night at the same time. Out in the country, we found an old cellar door buried under leaves. We thought it was nothing until we opened it and heard someone climbing up from the darkness below. Years later, I learned the truth. There were bodies down there. The Intruder at Tyler's house, modified. When I was 9, my cousin Tyler and I used to have sleepovers all the time. Always at his house, never mine, because he had the cool house. It was huge, full of places to hide, and back then, before cell phones and modern video games, kids like us actually played normal games. Our favorite was hide and seek in the dark. One summer night, both our parents went to Atlantic City, leaving Tyler's older brother Joe in charge. But Joe had his own plans. About an hour in, he told us he was going out, and made us promise not to tell his mom. Tyler didn't care. He loved having the whole house to himself. And I didn't mind because, to me, it just meant more freedom. By the time Joe left, it was around 9. We'd already had dinner and decided it was the perfect time to play hide and seek. Our rule was simple. No lights, only flashlights. It made the game scarier, more exciting. Tyler started counting in the basement while I searched for a hiding spot. I crept upstairs, heart thudding, and found an empty bedroom on the top floor. I buried myself between 2 giant beanbag chairs, pulled a blanket over me, and left the door slightly open so it wouldn't look suspicious. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps, soft but quick, moving across the carpet. Tyler? At least that's what I thought. I listened as he opened one closet, then another, then drawers sliding open, objects shifting around. My body froze. Something felt off. Suddenly, from somewhere downstairs, I heard Tyler's voice calling my name in a teasing, drawn-out tone. My stomach dropped. If Tyler was downstairs, then who was in the room with me? I lifted the blanket just enough to peek out. What I saw made my chest tighten. It wasn't Tyler at all. This was a man, a full-grown adult, much taller, standing stiffly by the desk. He froze when Tyler's voice echoed again, then ducked into the shadowy corner of the room, trying to hide. Just then, Tyler came bounding in, flashlight swinging, still chanting my name. The beam landed on me under the blanket, and I seized the moment. I popped out, fake laughed, and said, "You got me!" I forced myself to sound casual, slid an arm around Tyler's shoulder, and gently nudged him out of the room. My heart was pounding. Halfway down the stairs, I whispered to him, "There's someone up there with us." His eyes widened. We didn't even think twice. We bolted out the front door, sprinted next door, and begged the neighbor to call the cops. Minutes later, police cars pulled up. We watched breathless as officers stormed inside. 5 minutes later, they dragged a man out in handcuffs. Even as a kid, I felt this strange rush of relief mixed with terror. I'll never forget that night. And to this day, I still wonder what would have happened if Tyler's voice hadn't called out when it did. The knocks at Mike's window, modified. I was 13 the night I slept over at my friend Mike's house. His place sat at the very end of a dead-end road, with only one other house nearby. Across the street stretched an empty field surrounded by trees, and behind his backyard loomed a thick, dark forest. It was the kind of setting that made you feel cut off from the world. That night, the sky was heavy with clouds. A thin drizzle tapped against the windows, and every so often, lightning cracked through the sky, lighting up the yard in eerie white flashes. Mike's dad had gone to bed upstairs, leaving us alone in the den on the lower level, where we played GameCube and laughed like kids do when they think they own the night. And then came the knock. It was soft but sharp, right on the backyard window. Both of us froze, controllers in hand. The blinds were shut, so we couldn't see outside. Mike, being braver or maybe dumber, jumped up to pull the blinds. I hissed at him not to, but he did it anyway. I quickly shut off the TV and lamp so whoever was outside couldn't see us. The den plunged into darkness. Now the faint glow from outside gave us just enough light to see a stretch of wet grass. Lightning lit up the field in a quick flash. Empty. Nothing but mud and rain. We sat there in silence, eyes fixed on the window, waiting for something, anything. After what felt like forever, we convinced ourselves it was just our imagination. We turned the TV back on, lamp glowing again, blinds still open. But I couldn't stop glancing back at the glass. Then it came again. A second knock, louder this time. My body jolted. Mike's eyes went wide. Before we could move, lightning ripped across the sky, and in that split-second flash, we saw him. A man, standing at the window. We both screamed and bolted upstairs, pounding on his dad's door, until he stumbled out half asleep. Breathless, we dragged him downstairs. He grabbed a flashlight and coat, then led us into the rain-soaked yard. The mud outside told the story. Deep boot prints stamped into the earth, circling by the back wall, pressed into the puddles. We followed them until they thinned out in the grass. No man, no trace, just silence, and the forest watching us. Shaken, we went back inside. Mike and I curled up in the den, pretending we could sleep. I couldn't stop staring at the window, blinds shut tight now. At exactly 12:15 a.m., the third knock came. 3 sharp raps, as if the man knew we were listening. Mike and I bolted upstairs again, crying out for his dad. This time, his father rushed outside alone while we called the police. He came back drenched, furious, and pale. He'd seen no one. The police found nothing. The knocking never came again. But I never spent another night in that den. Even years later, I can still feel that exact moment. The lightning, the man's silhouette at the glass, and the knowledge that he was out there watching us. Story 3. The Cellar at Chris's House, Modified. Chris was one of my best friends when I was a kid. When I was 8, his family moved to a house deep in the countryside, surrounded by woods on all sides. A year later, my mom drove me out for a weekend sleepover. It was the kind of property that felt like an adventure waiting to happen. That first night, as we were watching a movie, I thought I heard faint noises beneath the floor. Scratches, maybe. Knocks. I asked Chris if he had a basement. He shook his head. No basement, he said casually, but then admitted his whole family had been hearing strange noises from below for days. They were planning to call an inspector soon. I didn't sleep well that night. The next afternoon, Chris and I decided to explore the woods behind his house. The air was warm, the sky partly cloudy. We hadn't gone far when Chris's foot clanged against something metal hidden under the dirt. We brushed it clear and stared down at a pair of rusty cellar doors, like something straight out of a horror movie. Chris swore he'd never seen it before. Neither had his dad. We grabbed the handles, heaved it open, and the hinges screamed so loud it echoed through the trees. A black hole yawned beneath us, with a ladder disappearing down into darkness. The air smelled of damp earth and rust. We leaned over the edge, calling down. Nothing, just silence. Then clank. Something dropped onto the floor below. A second later came a sound that froze us both. Metallic thuds climbing upward. Someone was coming up the ladder. We bolted back to the house, shouting for Chris's dad. He rushed outside, followed us to the cellar, and stared at it in shock. He called down into the dark, demanding whoever was inside to come out. No answer. Within minutes, a couple of his buddies showed up, and the three of them descended the ladder while Chris and I were ordered back inside. We waited upstairs, whispering, terrified. 5 minutes later, they emerged, faces pale, shaken. None of them said a word to us. They went straight to Chris's mom and spoke in hushed voices. Soon after, the police showed up. Chris and I weren't allowed to leave his room. I didn't know the truth until years later, when I was 13. Chris texted me one night and told me what his dad had really found. At the bottom of that tunnel were 3 full body bags tucked in the corner. Nearby lay an old cot, broken bottles, and the heavy stench of recently smoked pot. Someone had been living down there, among the dead. And when we heard those metallic thuds climbing up the ladder, we weren't imagining it. Whoever was down there, they had been on their way up.